Hello and welcome back. This is episode 2 to my game dev journey, learning how to make a video game. I've worked with Unreal for a long time, uh, on and off as little projects, trying to future-proof myself. And now I'm working on trying to make my first game. The first episode will be linked in the iCard at the top corner, wherever that ends up on this weird aspect ratio that I'm trying out. But I just wanted to show you some of the things I did this week as I tried to learn what I was going to do and how I was going to be able to do it, which is not something that I found people do very often. So first I pulled in and found the maze generator that I wanted to use, and I'll see if I can find it in Marketplace and link it because I think it was really helpful to help generate mazes. And when I brought it in, it was messed up and not showing stuff, so I had to pull in the blueprints and figure out exactly what was going on. And the first thing I found out, the static meshes were missing, so it just wasn't visualizing anything. But just messing around, figuring out what it does was really helpful to learn what I could do with it. And it had some stuff for demoing purposes that aren't needed in a game, like a constantly updating thing. But yeah, it's really cool and can do a lot of stuff with it, so I'm really excited to work with it. After I got that ready, I needed to make the drawing feature, which I found a really good tutorial series. I'm going to link this because it's the only time I've seen anything like this done so far. And if you've seen it, basically this part of the game that I'm making, or this game I'm making, is kind of like what the Looker does in its start to end mazes. And basically we're drawing through the maze. And that's not something I've seen. So I'm trying to do splines, and not a lot of people use splines this way. And that's because they're awful. They don't collide very easily. I haven't been able to find a nice way to make them overlap nicely. But I was able to do some things, and they feel very hacky and inefficient. So I'm going to have to go back through and do a second pass. But I was able to get some stuff going where I'm able to draw a line from point A to point B, and they detect something's happening, but it's not. At first, it didn't really work at all, and it was telling me that I was not connected to both the start and end, which is annoying because, as you just saw, they were connected. But like I said, the splines don't collide well, so you have to really force it and look for ways to detect the overlapping of components, and it really isn't fun. So if there's a better way to draw on screen like this, other than splines, I would love to hear it. Even if this comes out and in like 6 months down the road someone tells me something different, I would gladly do it differently, because splines aren't fun to work with. And I think I would go back and do it a better way, because I've had to do a lot to actually get this even near usable. So let's move to the next clip here. And what we have is just a first attempt at actually trying to solve a maze. And as you can see, it's very it doesn't work. It's not continuing a line. It's very laggy and very annoying. And even though I'm running on a decent computer here, it's not great, and that's really annoying, because when you're running generally, it runs pretty nicely. And like when I'm running an empty scene, it works great. Once I start trying to do it in the maze with all the stuff I had to do to get this to work, it doesn't, and it gets really laggy and it skips a lot. So even on this very small maze, which is like not very many tiles, I had to have collision points so that I know that I'm not just clicking on the start and then clicking on the end and it counting it as a completed maze, which isn't something I expected to have to deal with, which is, I mean, a blessing because it's really made me like had to think about what I'm doing here. But on the other side, it's really annoying because it's just the solution doesn't look like what I expected, and it's not running how I want it to. So I finally get it to work here, and it says that I completed the maze, and it is slow and clunky, and it doesn't quite feel as good as I want. But as you can see here, it's saying that I completed, and then it says that the line's not connected. So there's still a lot of bugs working through this, but I'm getting closer, and this is just a couple hours a day trying to get something done to work towards this. So I finally get something decent, so I make the maze bigger, and it didn't work for a long time, and it got even more laggy because it's a bigger maze, there's more parts, so there's more collision, and I'm working through trying to figure out how to reduce the amount of collisions that I have and how to know when the maze is solved. So I tried to use a AI pathfinder using the nav mesh to make out the route that it's supposed to do. Anywhere the nav mesh overlaps with one of the hidden boxes, it records its position in space, and then if the line passes through that, my spline passes through that same space, it compares the two arrays, and if the arrays are the same, it considers that a success. But the AI like actor kind of just runs as fast as it can, and sometimes it overlaps incorrectly. So in this test, I'm overlapping with any adjacent square that it could have ran into to see if it works. And I believe either on this test or a test nearby, I actually get a complete where everything worked correctly. But again, very laggy. You can see the spline is broken up weird. And then on this screenshot, you can see that there's an actor in every cell of the maze, which is super inefficient when you think about it, because everything on this side of the maze doesn't matter for the solution. You don't need them there. So they're just sitting there being called, creating event ticks that aren't needed and taking up any ounce of memory when this could possibly, if I figure, and then look at my spline. Geez, there's so many points in the spline that aren't needed to make it look good, and that's why we're seeing the cracking. So there's just a lot of really inefficiencies that I've found since I'm kind of going probably way too fast than I need to. So I end up with like janky built stuff that it says it works, but it's not viable for anything. So I have to figure out how much of this is going to be done procedurally, because right now all of the actors are being placed procedurally. There's an AI that is tracing it, which is completely unnecessary. So I think what I'm going to do is have these spaces in an array from the beginning, have collisions placed instead of procedurally placed, so that the game doesn't have to do all these things first. It doesn't make a bunch of extra like crap that is unneeded, and then it should run smoother just because there's not going to be 100 actors on screen. It's going to be just the ones in the path, and then I'll have to update how the spline is created and drawn, because right now there's probably like 80% too many. There's like so many spline points here, which is not good, I think, for the like what you get out of it, because you see that there's like cracks and double backs and the interpolation isn't great. So we have to work through some kinks that aren't great. But I think we're moving in the right direction for at least this first pass. As I'm going along, I'm looking at just anything that has been done this way, and I can't find it. I always see those crappy ads where they're drawing lines and stuff, and there's no one talking about it. Mostly, I'm guessing because those ads are nonsense and the games don't exist. But yeah, after I started thinking about it, the looker, the game that's a parody of The Watcher, I believe is the way it goes, has mazes that you draw from start to end, and even mazes that are more environmental, and they seem to be great. And that's kind of, I want to take just those tiny bits of the mazes and make it into like a couple levels to see if they're interesting to play. And I feel like they wouldn't print mazes on kid menus if they weren't interesting to somebody. So this has to be good for somebody. So we're gonna make our spline look like our crayon or something, and really try to make this very niche and fun. But we have to get past those small hurdles of doing things inefficiently so that it actually runs on a phone if we can get it exported and strong enough to play mobilely. But until then, we just have to keep, how I say, banging my face against the keyboard until something comes out useful. But I think we're on the right track, and I think in not too long, we'll have something that's playable and usable. And I think it's been a good experience trying to figure out what is happening in the space, and if it would be done better in Godot, and if there's better like 2D overlapping line options there. I don't know if there is. From what I could see, you could draw lines for mazes, but a lot of people skip this phase and go straight into a 3D character, or even a character that moves square by square, which is also a really cool idea. I think I'm gonna find my place once I get going into just making a bunch of maze games, regardless of interest, because they're super cool to me. And I think at some point we'll be building like a Maze Runner style puzzle where everything matters, where there's hidden secrets and there's lore to be found, and all I can think of is why not, because it's super fun to do, it's super fun to develop, and all the keyboard imprints of on my face from the previously stated face smashing will totally be worth it in the end, because I'll have created something and reached that goal that I set out for. So let's see if we can get to it. If you're here, thank you for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like. We're gonna make it all the way through this episode 2 of Mini. Until next time, see you around. Bye.